Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show, a pre-recorded episode of the D&D Show. We're recording this on Friday night, so
we're live,
but it's live for us. Yeah,
we're live.
But yeah, the night before, just because I had to watch a little boy, my son.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not weird. I had to watch my son, and so he runs around, and it doesn't make for good recording in the morning.
Don't make it weird.
But we're gonna have a great time, lots of stuff to talk about. Here on the Saturday Morning D&D Show. I am joined always by my wonderful co-host, Sir Lucian, over at Sir Lucian Gaming. Hello. How's it going?
Hello, everybody. It's great on this Friday evening, or for those of you that are watching this, welcome to Saturday morning.
Saturday morning.
Now, we should play it at like 5 a.m. like they used to play the cartoons super early, so people would have to get up really early.
Like, I gotta watch it live.
Yeah.
That reminds me, there was something that somebody was saying. They went to their parents' house with their kids, and their parents didn't have like a DVR or anything like that, and or even like streaming services. And the dad was trying to explain to his daughter, like, no, like certain shows were on at certain times and you had to sit down and watch it at that time or you couldn't watch it. Yeah. And she was like, you're lying. Like, what is, like, why would you ever want that? It's like, well, we didn't want it or want it. It's just what it had. That's what it was, you know?
Yeah.
Like, that's what we had. Yeah. And I thought that was funny that, you know, or the big one is with kids, like, it used to cost a nickel to send a text message. And someone's like, you're lying. Like, why? Like, what? And just how the world has changed. But we're going to GenCon.
We are.
So by this next Saturday, I guess we won't have a show. Unless we record something on my phone and upload it. I don't know, which we could.
Yeah.
And that might be fun too. But yeah, we're going to be at GenCon, and that's going to be super fun. I hope you don't mind staying up late, because my plane definitely lands at like 11:30 at night. So Wednesday.
Yeah. I can't even imagine how I'm already excited now. How excited I'm going to be then. I don't even know how I'm going to sleep.
It doesn't feel real. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going away next week. I'm just like, what? Yeah. But I got a new, what was it? I got a new suitcase in the mail. Just because my other one was kind of falling apart. And so I got like a hard shell one that's like really good for traveling on, and it'll fit the dimensions for carry-on a little better than the other one that I had. So that'll be cool.
Is it bigger, smaller?
It'll hold more, I think. But mostly I got it just for, like, the dimensions are right. I don't have to fight with TSR where they're like, well, I don't know if this bag, like, should you check that? And I'm like, no, not TSR. What is the
TSA.
TSA, yeah. We've been looking at so much
Transportation
TSR stuff.
Security Agency or something?
Just the TSA and the airlines and stuff, because the one I have is just like a duffel bag kind of thing, and I think the last time I went, I think I just had like a backpack, and that wasn't enough, because coming home I had all this extra stuff that I was like, oh crap. So
I remember that. Well, the other, I was going to say again, another option for you is you can buy a ton of stuff. I can bring it home and I can just ship it over to you.
That's, and I noticed they had like a mail thing the last time I was there.
Like,
did you buy stuff? We'll ship it for you. And I was like, that's clever. So I might do that. We'll see how much I buy, but usually I'm just buying books and then I read them on the way home. I'm going to bring Easy D6. Oh, yeah. And I'll bring an adventure, and like I'll run you, and then we just got to find some other people who want to play with us. So I'm sure we'll find somebody. But yeah, it'll be good. Yes. I'm very excited. So we're going to be right there next to the convention center. It's going to be so fun. I've got tickets to a couple of games.
That was I was going to ask. Yeah.
I don't have, my badge is a press badge that I apparently have to pick up. So hopefully it's there waiting for me. They say it is, but the fact that they wouldn't mail it to me makes me a little like spooked. So, but I don't have to wait in the big line. They said it's in like a different office, so I just have to go flash my.
Yeah. When I did the games for Monty Cook, and then I did the games for the masks, because I was running those games, I had to go to another hotel where they were doing all their sessions and pick my badge up there, and that felt weird because you're like, I'm going to this convention, but I got to go where to get my badge, and nobody else is going there to get their badge, and all of a sudden, am I going to get there and it's not there, or they're out of them or something? But they were always really good about it. Had your badges and everything right there.
No, I'm sure it's fine. I've just never done this before, but I was like, no, I mean, I applied for a press badge last time, but they ended up not going. But it's nice, and honestly, it's so expensive for me to fly out there that it's really nice to save the $100 on a badge.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a drop in the bucket to the whole trip, but it's like it's just another little incentive for me to go in the first place. So
yeah, the first couple times I went, I was going on a budget, so that's why I was looking for games that I could, like, oh, they're gonna give me a 4-day badge so I can be there, and I'm going to run these games. And some of them were, sometimes if you worked at a booth, they might even get hotel room stuff. So I was looking for those a lot. Nowadays, like, that's it. I'm ready to go just out of fun. But
no, I almost did this when we were looking for hotels, because Goodman Games they're like, we're looking for somebody who will work our booth. We'll get you a badge and a hotel, but like no, there's no payment. They're not going to pay for anything. But I was like, oh man, like I would have done that in a heartbeat. Like, except not now, but yeah.
Yeah, because you're talking, if you're not like right there, which obviously would be super expensive. We've talked about this before. But let's say you're more moderate, so you're out
like if I could
in
drive
the outer
in,
area and you drive in, you're still spending probably $500 for that hotel, maybe 50 to 100 for parking, depending on how far you're willing to walk, and then food and hanging out and the stuff you're going to buy. So you're walking away with a lot of money. So if somebody picks your badge up, somebody picks your room up, that means all your money goes to games. Well, so that's what I was thinking.
Huge. And food, but yeah, it's huge. I was like, this is going to be great. So, say hi to us. We'll be running around. It's going to be awesome. So I'm really excited.
It's going to be a cool experience for us too, because I feel like this time we're both closer than we've ever been. We're going to be 0.7 miles from it, so like 3 blocks. We're going to see, where everybody's walking down the sidewalks. That's right where we are, and we're just going to walk right up, and then boom, we're there. We can be there as late as we want. We can go to all those restaurants all night long and just hang out with people, and then just walk right back to the hotel, and it's going to be so good. Not that driving in the hotel we stayed in wasn't bad before, but I think this could be cool. So.
No, but also, like, I felt like when I was staying with, even when I was walking home, like, late at night the last time I went, but the first year I stayed with you, there was a part of me that was like, well, if Lucian's driving home, like, I don't really want to buy a Uber later, so I'll, like, catch a ride with you. But sometimes I was like, oh, I just want to, like, take a quick nap so I can rally in the evening because I know more stuff is going to be happening. So I saw that friend and Jordan is a fan of Judge James will be there, so that'll be fun to say hi to him again. And chat all about games and everything else. It's really
I wonder
cool.
what he usually runs games for somebody. I wonder what he's doing, if he's into DCC this year, because for a few years he was big into all the Monty Cook stuff, and then he was doing all the DCC stuff. Yeah. I wonder what he's doing right now.
I don't know.
He usually volunteers for something.
I think he's playing a Savage Lands game. I think that's what he's playing at his house. But I don't know what he's going to run for GenCon, so who knows?
Interesting.
I'm not in anybody's games that I know of, because by the time I signed up for games, it was like slim pickings. But I think Goodman Games is going to have like a big area of just like DCC go crazy. So you could probably just walk up and be like, I'll run a funnel. Like, who cares? So
Well, do you remember we went and we got invited to play in a game, and we went to the hotel, the Marriott across the street. We went up like 1 or 2 floors, and then we walked into that big open room, and it was like table after table on like 3rd floor or 4th floor of the Marriott. I just got a message. They said that they've opened that up again, and it's all open gaming. You just grab a spot and you can go game in that giant cavernous room.
Oh, that's great, because that's like
we want to run games,
less well known too.
You can just go over there and we could pick a spot and say, hey, bring your magic cards, or bring your board games.
That's right. I got to build a magic deck.
D6 or we could buy some while we're there.
That's true. We could do that.
We've sealed deck draft, or I don't know all the rules, but we could build decks while we're there, Jordan.
We could. So super excited. I fly out Wednesday, and then.
So it is late. That was one thing I wanted to know. Just not because I didn't know if you're gonna Uber over, or you want me to come try to get you?
I'll probably
Uber.
Uber. Like, okay. I mean, it's late, but if you want to come pick me up, we'll talk.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think I land at like 11:15 or 11:30. I'll have to double check, but
I'll will message because I don't know what the exact parking situation is, and I feel like I want to park the car and leave it.
Yeah. So
that I'm not having to pay every single day like we normally do if I can avoid it. But we'll figure it out.
I don't mind Ubering. That's what I was going to do. So there's this thing called Spelljammer. It's coming out in 3 weeks.
We talk about it all the time, and we love it.
Are you excited?
I'm excited. I'm very excited.
I see they made a couple more videos specifically on the Hadoozy, which was interesting.
Space monkeys.
Yeah, they
Space
were
simians.
From Star Frontiers, which was another TSR product that Wizards absorbed when they bought TSR. And the Hadoozy are in Spelljammer, but I guess they were originally in Star Frontiers, which was their like sci-fi game they were working on that was short-lived. I don't really know a lot about Star Frontiers, but
I don't know. It sounds cool. Star Frontiers.
But really cool videos. They did 3 videos on the Hadoozy, the Plasmoids, and the Autognomes. The Autognomes and the Plasmoids being the first time that you have a... these are the first time they're races available in Dungeons & Dragons. Before they were just monsters. So, really cool. Spelljammer monsters.
What I like about those videos, too, is you get Chris Perkins, but you also get Jeremy Crawford's kind of... They both have their takes on what they were doing, thoughts behind some of the stuff they were doing, and some of the history that they looked into and that kind of stuff. So it was nice to see 2 kind of viewpoints coming in on when they were doing that video. And we were joking because we were talking about it in our Tuesday night game, which I'm sure we'll get to. And we were all joking like, well, now I want to run a campaign where your Spelljammer ship, Jordan, crashes next to Waterdeep, and when you get out, Waterdeep is all Hadoozy.
Oh, like Planet of the
It's the planet of the Hadoozy. Yeah, and you're like, what did you do?
They blew it up. They blew it up.
Like, why?
Oh, man. Then we have to incorporate the Planet of the Apes the musical from The Simpsons, which is one of my favorite bits that they've ever done, so...
Yeah. Before I was thinking, because they had said there's an influence there of that, but my influence for kind of like a space simian, anytime you're going to use like a monkey or ape or a thing like that, I read a great series many years ago by David Brin, was Uplift series, and it was talking about many years in the future where humanity has used science to increase the intelligence of animals that exist here on the planet. And the very first one they do that with is the chimpanzee, and they uplift them to be as smart as just like we are, and they become their own normal kind of sentient race that shares the planet with us, and it was a really cool thing. And then they do it again, and they do it with the dolphins next. So then they create a dolphin uplifted race, and they create a spaceship that's going to have a crew of dolphins and humans and the
chimpanzees,
chimpanzees. But I think they had different names for them too. Like they gave them names that weren't, so they weren't the animals anymore, but they were the uplifted race at this point. And then what happens in that story, spoilers, is we stumble into the rest of the galactic world out there, who's been leaving us alone until we... Apparently the way it works is everybody leaves you alone until you uplift another species and bring them to an intelligence level, and that shows that you're technologically ready to join the galactic whatever.
Oh, that's your warp signature?
Yeah, that's your warp signature event.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, so they stumble upon, and then everybody's like, wait a minute, they did 2 of them, not just one? No race has ever done that, you know, and they find about this history. It's really good. Look it up, David Brin. I always thought it was a really cool, and it takes place from, I think it's the first spaceship that's captained by one of the uplifted dolphins, and that's why it's a special ship at that point. And it's about the adventures of that ship and what goes on, and they call it the Uplift Wars because of course we cause all kinds of craziness and wars happen at that point. But I really liked it. David Brin, really good book, really good stuff. And that's what I think of when I think of like the Hadoozy. I was thinking, oh, that's a really cool idea, like uplifted animals or creatures that now have intelligence that's been raised as high or even higher than ours. And in fact, the characters in there, like I think the doctor is a chimpanzee, uplifted chimpanzee, and his intelligence is way above anybody else's human on that ship. This is like when they uplifted them, they went, you know, above and beyond on the intelligence chart. So it was like they're even smarter. So now what? So it was very interesting. So I don't know if anybody in chat has read those. Maybe they have. So check them out. I liked it.
So
Plasmoids.
Yeah. I'm excited. So what do you want to play in
Plasmoids?
Plasmoid? That's me too.
Yeah.
I like the Plasmoids the most. Somebody on the internet was saying it would be fun to play a Plasmoid with the Mask of Many Faces Warlock ability. So you literally were a shape changer. Because the Plasmoid itself can shape change into various objects, but then with that, you could make yourself look like other people. And I think that would be a really fun kind of spy assassin build to play, you know?
I love the slimes and the gelatinous cubes and the black puddings. Odo. Black puddings and things. But I also I think I like it more, the idea that you're vaguely humanoid, but you're still kind of a rounded shape, right? You know, you're close, or you do it so that, you know, people are more comfortable around you. And you can have your utility belt and your gear, and you can still use stuff, but in reality, you don't have to have that shape or use that shape. I just love that idea of that type of a person, and just stuff inside you that you're slowly absorbing as your nutrients or whatever. Just, you know, you're a gelatinous cube that just
pineapple just floating around in your chest. You're like, it's a snack.
Your apple core is in there. An apple.
The autonomes are interesting because they're going to be small, but I wonder if that's going to be a template to create a construct character that's not Warforged. You know, this was really interesting that it's like, for this setting, it kind of makes sense to have Warforged be the robot of the crew, but they are not. That's strictly an Eberron thing, and we're going to go revert back to this autonome stuff. Although I totally see the point of, they're never going to say outright, but it's going to be that, you know, if you want to play like a Warforged, I'm sure it'll work out in some way. And thinking back to Strixhaven, they said the same thing. Like, if you want to play any other race, it can really work in Strixhaven, but here are the ones that we recommend, and I feel like we're going to get a similar thing with that.
Well, I know what Chris Perkins said in that video is they wanted to make a construct playable character, but the difference from the Warforged is that it was a fully mechanical, whereas the Warforged, I believe, is part
They've got it's a magical creation that has
there's something
like tree roots and stuff for arteries and things like that. Yeah.
And so the autonomes were going to be your R2D2, your CP3O, your fully mechanical, fully made by something else, but is now, I think, sentient or works, and gives you the chance to be the robot or the, I guess, android. Data would be another example of something like that. They said from the Star Trek point of view, and I think that's kind of cool too. Just the idea that you can have an R2D2 style character, I think is just fun. It
also makes me really happy in all those interviews that Chris Perkins is a Star Trek fan, because I am a Star Trek fan, and he talks. He's like, well, when Star Trek, and he'd always kind of like revert back to that because he's like, I want to run a fantasy Star Trek game, and so.
Or Clockwork. They never mentioned it, but I thought this is perfect for all the type of Clockwork stuff that's out there. And there's some really cool Clockwork Assassins and Clockwork Warriors, and, you know, just all these kind of cool things. And they don't have to be like the same type of magic constructs where you get your elementals or your shield guardians or things like that, but more of like your full-on, you know, or, hey, who doesn't want to play a Modron, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of like an autonome.
Yeah, they were saying that or I was reading up the history on autonomes, and they were originally created by the gnomes to go into places that were too hostile for gnomes. So it is like, oh, this is a planet of poisonous gas, but it has resources or something we need. Send the autonomes; they'll do the work, and then we're good to go. Not so much like sending them to their destruction, but just like they're very suited for hostile environments, and
they could probably be configured for that. Yeah, I could see that. That's cool.
Pretty cool. I'm excited. I think it's going to be a fun read. I've been also reading through Radiant Citadel and really enjoying that. It's been a lot of fun, that book, and it's weird because a lot of the adventures are shorter, but I think that's almost better. Like, I really do feel like you could run one or two of one a night and just have like a solid experience with it. So yeah, the more I'm reading it, the more I'm getting that vibe, and I kind of just like it. So
yeah, it felt like a session. Like you could get, you know, and probably a 4-hour, you know, maybe not necessarily a 2 or a 3 if you're doing like a Twitch show where a lot of people kind of keep that a little bit less. But like you're doing a regular, people are coming over 4 or 5 hours, you know, and everybody's hanging out at the table. That seemed like the perfect size for that. So.
Well, with Spelljammer coming out, I wanted to talk a little bit about campaign settings, because there is, and I'll put a link down below, but there is a gentleman that has gotten a lot of information from the TSR days back in the day, and he has uploaded all of these graphs of like sales data. And it's interesting because it's like what books sold the most. And so from 1979 to 1990, the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons did the PHB. It shows the player handbook sales and the Dungeon Master's Guide sales. And it says, like, you know, the player's handbook sales peaked in 1981. And then by 1989 was just a sliver of what it used to be, you know, like probably under 10,000.
Everybody had one,
in all honesty. And so it's just like, well, yeah, like, and that's why I think they look at that and they're just like, we need a new edition of D&D. Like, who knows? But somebody, actually it was Sly Flourish and a bunch of other people were talking about this, that they're in this data. One of the things they released was the TSR campaign setting sales from 79 to 1990. So over the course of all of these years, it shows like, okay, we release the Greyhawk setting, that sells really well. And then we release Lankmark, doesn't sell very good. But like Dragonlance and the Forgotten Realms, all of those kind of key things that TSR owns, which really lends to my belief that a lot of us want to play in this shared world in a way. Or maybe that's what we were talking before the show started, but people didn't know how to build a custom world. So it was very like, I want to play in the Forgotten Realms because that is what TSR is providing me. And interestingly enough, TSR, the Forgotten Realms was the highest selling in 1987 out of all of these together. So it sold the most. Released in 1987. I shouldn't say they sold the most in 1987. And I'll put it up on the screen here. Lucian can't see this, but I got a picture of it that I can put up for people to see. So after that, Spelljammer, Ravenloft, Maztica, which did not do well, Dark Sun, Al-Qadim of the Forgotten Realms, which is kind of its own separate thing, Planescape, and then Red Steel, which I've never heard of, and then Birthright. So a lot of these come out. And then what they were saying is that this was the fall of TSR, is that they made all these different campaign settings, and then they were trying to support every single one with supplements. But the thing is like, if I play Ravenloft, that's great. I'm going to go buy the new Ravenloft book, maybe, you know, unless I'm having fun without it. But it's like, oh, the new Ravenloft book, I'll go buy that. But am I going to buy the new Dark Sun book? Well, no, I don't play in Dark Sun. I play in Ravenloft, so I don't need that book. I want this book. And for them being overworked and pumping out all of these books, because in their minds they're like, well, we have to support all of these different things. So all these adventures come out specifically for that setting, and all of these supplement books specifically for that setting. I wonder if they thought, oh, this is going to sell more of the core book, because people will see, like, they'll see, oh, another Eberron book. I better go buy this. And ultimately they were losing money on all the books they were making. And I'll put our faces back on.
Yeah, I can see the trap.
Yeah. Do you see that?
I mean, trap? I see it because, like, you're at some point we're there, right? We're in the meeting and we're like, okay, we've got these 3 setting books out there, but when we look at the numbers for last month, they're kind of going down. And somebody could easily say in that meeting, well, if we just supported them and we put some more products out, then people will want to keep going. But what you really were doing was splintering your audience to the point that it made all of them bring each other down instead of raising each other up, right? It wasn't supporting each other, that all of these, because everybody was a fan of maybe one of those, but it was probably rare for somebody to be a fan of 2 or 3 of them and want to buy all of them. So but you wouldn't know. On the surface, you might not know that right away. Like, you wouldn't know it till
I think this is hindsight 100%. Yeah. But it does not. Current 5e with Wizards of the Coast, thinking about this, there's so many people that are chomping at the bit, like, release this campaign setting and do this one, and why don't this? And then people, myself included, and then people are saying, like, why isn't there more Eberron content? This sucks. Like, you released a really good book, and now there's nothing. And I think they know that they're like, well, if we make another Eberron book, that's not going to make the first book sell more. Nobody's going to buy the first book because the second book came out. So literally we're taking all of this time and energy, putting it into a book that a fraction of our fans is going to even think about purchasing it. And I think about that. I was like, you're absolutely right. Like, if they came out with another Strixhaven book, I don't think I'd buy it. You know?
Or take it a little bit to the extreme. So let's say we walk into our game store, and at this point they have 12 books for Dark Sun, 12 books for Ravenloft, 12 books for Forgotten Realms, and you're the dungeon master. Because there's so many in that line, you pick a line. I'm not going to buy 24 books. Now, if there was only 3 books, I could make a case where I'm a dungeon master. I might pick up the 3. But now if I've got a line of 6 or 7 or 8 books, I'm going to stay in that lane, buy those books because there's enough of them. But I'm really getting splintered off from everybody else and their sales numbers. So it's very interesting.
I think.
But I want more settings.
I do. I also want more settings. I like that. I like this idea as well. But the idea that I could take a lot of the settings not the settings, but a lot of the adventures that 5e has released and kind of apply them to my own world or things like that. I think if they do setting books again, it's going to be very like, let's address a function of play in a way. And so it's like, especially for Eberron, the majority of that Eberron book was the city of I forget the name of it. Spire? Shar.
Sharn?
Sharn. I think it was Sharn.
We've read so many now. There's so many cities in our heads. Yeah. I think it's Sharn, right?
Yeah, it is. Sharn, City of Towers. So a lot of that was about Sharn. And so looking at it from that, I could take Sharn and put it in any kind of world I want to. Radiant Citadel was a great example where all of those were really complete little worlds that I can put in any of my... Like, I could run it as one-shots, but I could also just sprinkle it into my existing world, whether that's Forgotten Realms or not. And I think that's going to be the future. With Spelljammer, their idea was... let's use this campaign setting, but really we're going to focus on the idea of travel. Like, how do we make travel from different things interesting and sailing the astral sea? So it's not so much a boxed in campaign setting like Planescape was or or even Spelljammer was. I think it's going to be this like, if my players want to travel to the moon, now I can do it, and we can have an interesting way of getting there. It, from a business standpoint, it makes a lot of sense the direction they're going. And after seeing this, I'm looking at the 5e line of books with new eyes, and everything feels very calculated and safe, as opposed to before, where I'm like, if they would just release Dark Sun, they would make so much money. Well, no, you know.
Well, and I think one thing we talked a tiny bit about just before the show started too, I do believe there's this mentality shift from back then in TSR 80s days to now, and it's been encouraged by Wizards of the Coast now to say back then canon was important almost, and like when you were making the setting, even inside the books, I don't recall them saying, hey, but if you like Greyhawk, you could probably put this over in the mountains of this. If you like Dark Sun, maybe put this in the deserts of the Waste, because that would fit here. They didn't really, I don't think, now I could be wrong, but I don't remember that.
I've read a lot, and I don't think that they have. I think you're right.
Whereas now, you always see that. Yeah. Like, they always mention it, and Radiant Citadel is huge with it, because every one of those says, hey, you've got a Greyhawk campaign, then this would fit in this spot or here. Or, hey, you're running, you know, this other camp, Eberron, and this would fit great in this part of Eberron or Birthright or whatever. So I think they do a better job now of encouraging and reminding dungeon masters that you can use any book and bring it into your campaign. You don't have to say, I'm only doing Dark Sun or I'm only doing this or that. And the canon has been watered down or made not as important. Whereas the Grognards were always about, if I'm in Greyhawk, I want to play Greyhawk. Don't you bring your Dark Sun over here.
They had the idea of the living worlds too. Like there were people playing these games that were all over the world. And then every month or something they would tally the results of what happened, and it would have game like lore changing effects that would then go into effect. And so
that locks you in to the same world.
Is a really cool idea, but when you think about it from like a marketing book selling point of view, you're like, oh, you're right, because all you're doing is alienating new people who are just like, so I have to read like 7 books to really understand what's happening. And like, ooh, there's a reason that the starter set is like, you're in a village, play, like, here you go. But then there, you know, and that's coming from me, a whole YouTube channel dedicated to try and figuring out this lore so that I could play in a Forgotten Realms game. Now I'm seeing the other side of it where you're like, oh, I guess you're right, you know? And we were talking now that a lot of people probably play in their own worlds more now than they ever did before. Because I don't think we understood that you could make your own world. I mean, people did, but it was like, oh, like, it's a game. Oh, this book helps me run a game, you know? Like, how often are you like, we're going to play Monopoly, but I'm actually going to call it this, and we're going to play it like that or something, so.
Yeah, alternate version rules of Monopoly. We have 7 different ones.
Yeah, so, I don't know. It was an interesting read, and I would like to talk about this more, but I think I need to put my thoughts together a little bit better, too. But the fall of TSR was potentially... the amount of campaign settings they made and trying to support too many lines of books, you know?
I would throw one more thing out there, too. They were going more quantity at the end, and the quality, I believe, was diminishing.
I'm sure, yeah.
So I do think there's a part of that. And think of also, until you get a rules change or a new edition, your front few years are built with rules books, and everybody wants to get those. But after that, you're doing options books, right?
Yep.
And so at that point, you're moving into a different spot. And we're in that now with 5e. We are pretty much in the options spot. And we could well be looking at the downward spiral of 5e until whatever else comes out, 6 or whatever. Because it's only going to go for so long before they have to say, all right, new rule system, here we go, because then everybody's buying those books again. Everybody comes back for those. As you get into the options mode, everybody's just buying certain options, but not all options. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, they could be falling into the same trap, even knowing the information they know now.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
Crazy.
This was something, Monty Cook Games, a Kickstarter that we both backed.
One of our favorite companies.
The PDF came out today. And the physical book as well, but I had to, like, when I finished buying the PDF or using my free coupon or whatever, because I did the back Kickstarter, I paid for shipping for my book, so it'll be here in like a week or maybe less or more, who knows. But Planebreaker came out, and this is very fortuitous that it's coming out as Spelljammer is also coming out. Because I feel like having this book and the Spelljammer books is going to be really awesome. You've read a little bit more than I have, but tell us about Planebreaker. Like, what is this?
So the very first thing I liked, although look at that artwork on page 49. I don't even know if you can snip it and show the people.
Oh, I probably can.
That artwork on page 49 is so good. But the cool thing that was evocative to me, and Planebreaker is this idea of there's this celestial-like moon planet thing, not sphere but roundish, that is going from plane to plane. And when we read it in the Kickstarter, it was just this idea that we understood it could go from one plane to another plane to another plane. We're like, all right, this is how we could go from Dark Sun to this to Dragonlance to all this stuff, and it would be cool. And it's all 5e based, and you know it's going to be cool. And Monty Cook's all about it. But then when I actually opened it and I just kind of read that very first part of what the actual Planebreaker is, it's like a 5-mile object that when it's usually about a mile above the plane it's visiting, it stays about on average 48 hours or maybe a little bit more. It has its own gravity, it has an atmosphere, but the idea that it's moving slow over whatever plane it's on, so if it's going over Waterdeep or it's going over the deserts of Dark Sun or something, it's moving at about 7 miles an hour. I hadn't thought of that before. When I was thinking about it, I was thinking of like a shooting comet and then things, you know, like there was all kinds of cool stuff you could do. I didn't think about a slow-moving object that you have 48 hours to jump off of, do whatever you're going to do adventuring-wise, and then get back on it before it leaves again. You know, that blew my mind when I read just that piece, and I'm like, now we have something we can really dive into, because that's a cool option. If your players are based there and your campaign is on that, imagine how your sessions are going to work, because you can be like, well, you only get 48 hours, so they can't stay too long. They can't goof around. They can't decide they're going to, do things that are going to lengthen your campaign out. They have to get back on the Planebreaker. But then there's also the path, and the path seems to be another way to go along what the Planebreaker has created, like a path that can also be followed even if you're not on the Planebreaker. This is the way I'm reading it. So it looks like there's two ways in this book that you can move from plane to plane to plane. Yeah. And it sounds like it, even as you're striding, you're shifting, you're seeing the planes change, that quickly when you're on the path, but the Planebreaker is moving slower. So you have kind of two modes is the way I'm reading it. And I've only glossed over it. So if I've got some of it wrong,
we got it like a couple hours before we're recording. But no, there's monsters. There's a few subclasses that I didn't remember being there. I kind of just backed it because I like Monty Cook's brain. I think he creates really interesting stuff. And this is for 5e. I think they're also going to make it for their system, Cypher, at some point. But it's just a traveling comet that is it's basically a planet, but it's smaller, so it's kind of like a big weird city that does just phase in and out of these different planes. And so you have a lot of the you could use the base planes of the planescape of like Forgotten Realms, but he's added a whole bunch of his own as well. And I just think it's really interesting. So this could be cool, because you could see this, you could hop on it with your Spelljammer, shift out of something, and like, oh, where am I now? We have to fly somewhere else, and who knows, like go back through the Astral Street to try and get home because you accidentally hitched a ride on the Planebreaker. But
yeah, listen to this too. Like, the Planebreaker is a moon-sized structure of unknown provenance. Planar debris sleets across it as it tears through the dimensions. The accumulated residue of previously visited dimensions adheres to the moon's surface, creating the Sea of Uncertainty. It just sounds cool. Yeah. Just that was enough to make me go, now I have a campaign. I'm ready to go.
No, he makes the greatest stuff. Like, I just love
artwork. Is fantastic.
The art's really good. A lot of Monty Cook, Monty Cook Games does not skimp on art, and they do a great job.
The layout looks good. I like the color of the pages. Those little symbols there, those little tokens on page 10 look really good.
I'm really excited to see to get the physical book, because I like reading physical books more than PDFs. Yeah. So it's going to be good.
But yeah, talk about some of the or name the classes at least. We won't go into them too deep.
Yeah.
So go back to the table of contents.
As far as subclasses, there's a fighter martial archetype called Chaos Blade.
Nice.
And I don't know much about it. It looks like you have a fancy blade that does crazy stuff.
But if somebody says, "What are you?" and you're like, "I'm a Chaos Blade," that sounds pretty badass.
But yeah, it's like beings who's shown to learn. Like, Chaos Blade, you develop your ability through stuff. I don't know. So you get a weapon of chaos and things like that. There's a divine domain called the Multiverse domain that looks really cool. With some new spells that are called like Fey Crossing and Bind to Dimension, which is kind of cool. So there's new spells and stuff as well. There's a rogue archetype called Shadow Stitched that just looks cool.
The Incarnates. That's in there.
And a wizard called the Defacer Wizard. So you get a mask and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really excited. And then there's a bunch of new feats and some new spells as well. So
yeah, one new option to learn the ways of the Chaos Blade. Chaos Blade, Weapons of Chaos, Chaotic Sheath, Chaos Surge, Wings of Chaos. Oh, wow. This sounds
new magic
cool.
items. There's a really fun one here called the Hood of Tentacles. You get 4 extra stylized lengths of fabric that resemble tentacles are on the top of it, and you can cast Detect Thoughts with this. And so it's kind of fun.
Oh, the Shadow Thief is kind of like your shadow helps you out. It's kind of like kind
of like the
that interacts with the world. The
Echo Knight or whatever?
Yeah. But I think there is another one that's a shadow-based one, isn't there? I was thinking Echo Knight, I guess, could be considered a shadow.
There's the Whisper Bard. There is something. I don't know. Anyway, go check it out. I think you can buy it on their website at this point. So it's Planebreaker, Path of the Planebreaker. I'm really excited.
Wizard Arcane Traditions, Defacer, Crow Familiar, Faceless Mask, Aberrant Mask, Erase Face. This sounds interesting. Artwork looks crazy. Grove of Crows. Very cool. Very cool. I can't wait to read through it all. We just got it today. I saw the email come through and I'm like, yes, download.
I realized we started later than normal and I was trying to wrap this up by 8 o'clock, but we still have like 20 minutes, so I don't need to be so fast.
You were looking at the clock.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh,
so
we gotta go, we gotta go.
I was like, well, we gotta talk through this. So yeah. But I think this would work really well with Spelljammer. Obviously, I don't know because I haven't read the Spelljammer books yet, but this is one of those things that I have been adding to my world of Endegar. So I haven't really told you this either, Lucian, but like I've still been working on that because it's just fun, even though I have never played a game using my Endegar world yet. But rather than trying to be like, well, maybe this is a setting I can publish one day, I got rid of that idea and I'm like, I'm just going to pull in all the things that I think is cool and kind of build a place for it in Endegar. So I started like, oh, I've got this really cool zine for the OSR that's about a haunted forest. Well, now I have a haunted forest in my world and I know where it is on the map, and if they visit it, I have this resource that's linked to a PDF. And so my database of Endegar is becoming very large and like full of all kinds of crazy stuff coming in and out of it that I could do. And I think this is one of those things, like maybe once every 1,000 years the Planebreaker comes by, and so oh look, it's a fortuitous night and here it is, or like they find weird cave paintings of people drawing this thing in the sky, this celestial event. Like how cool would that be? So
well, and there is an adventure in this, so you can play the Tyrants Key. I'll read a Duke of Hell forged a masterpiece of destruction, a massive flying battlecraft able to cross the plains called the Tyrant of War. That just sounds cool. And then there's a whole synopsis of what the adventure is. You're going to planes hop on some stuff. That's just cool. That makes me think of like Warhammer 40K and Warhammer stuff when you start to bring in chaos and spaceships and things like that, or big battleships. Oh, that's so
and
good.
It looks sorry, just at the very last page, they are going to keep supporting this because it says early 2023 they're going to have a planner bestiary to go along with this.
Oh, cool.
And then Planebreaker player options. Yeah. So more player options if you wanted to actually like make this your campaign.
And I think when I went to get this, I had more coupons for other stuff. And I think that might have been some of the stretch goals. So I don't know if there was more adventures or more things, or if that was from one of my other Monty Cook.
Oh,
because I do almost all of Monty Cook. Yeah, like everything they put out, I pretty much.
There were some STL files that were given out for free.
And for
miniatures, yeah,
right?
Yeah, 3D print miniatures. So I did get those. That might be one of the things you got.
Let me look at what I got, because I got the Night of Dissolution.
This is a great audio podcast.
yeah. They're just like, what are you guys doing? These are Tolis ones. Remember when I did the Kickstarter for Tolis?
There you go.
The Bane Warrens. This is underneath the city of Tolis. And then what was the other one I just downloaded? Oh yeah, Return of the Ebon Hand, another adventure for Tolis. So I got 3 adventures. So that proves that they do like to support the products they put out, because Tolis came out as a book, but then there was 3 more things that came out. So I imagine
they're following the bad things that TSR did. They're gonna split up their
I loved reading Tolis, man. That was so good too.
That's another thing where you could put that book or that city in your thing, but that's a huge campaign setting. So
yeah, I still want to try it. That's so good.
It would be good, Judge James ran Tolis, and I think he said overall he really liked the world, and he liked Tolis. He just didn't like 5e, and he switched out. But I don't know. I mean,
he does like the other games a lot. He likes, he's very eclectic. So he dove into Cypher for a while, and he dove into DCC hardcore for a while, and now I think we were even talking. He's Savage Lands now at the moment, or Deadwood, something like that right now.
Well, speaking of Dungeon Crawl Classics, and everyone can take a drink. I played Dungeon Crawl Classics this weekend, or this 2 days ago on Wednesday.
You played or ran it?
Or I ran it, sorry.
Gotcha.
And I ran it with a zine that I bought a while ago that was system neutral called Pungeon Quest, where they randomly fall into a dungeon, but it is completely filled of puns, and so everything's it's just really funny. But it's a fun system, and so the day before I went through and all of the monsters that they could potentially fight, I found DCC versions of them, and I put them in, and I'm like, okay, now that I have those monsters, if I run this and we randomly roll up whatever they have, I can take that and do X, Y, and Z. One character did go down to 0, but they healed her up just in time so that she didn't die. But we had a great time. Like they thought it was the funniest thing. Like everyone was trying to figure out the pun, because a lot of times if you figured out the pun, you could overcome the encounter more easily.
Gotcha.
There was one, the pun was go for the jugular instead of go for the jugular. And so the combat was against a circus troupe, but the juggler in the corner never attacked. But if you attacked him, they would all stop fighting and try to protect him and get him away from you. So it was like one of those things where if they figured out while they were playing, and it was fun. We had a good time. But I wanted to talk about Dungeon Crawl Classics because it's weird. Maybe I'm just really too familiar with D&D 5e. And other games I play are very easy. Like even Numenera, it's 1d20. Like everything feels really simple. And there's not a lot that I have to look up. But Dungeon Crawl Classics, every time there's a crit, every time there's like something, I'm like flipping, a fumble table. Okay, and I printed myself out little cheat sheets to help me. Still got lost and confused as to what was going on. And it was a lot of like just trying to figure out like, well, what are you trying to do and what's happening? And then little things. You need
your Dungeon Master screen with all your sticky notes on it. That's what you did.
That's what you did back in the day. But then also with Dungeon Crawl Classics, we were talking about little things like, well, if I'm prone, what happens? And I was like, I don't know, because all my friends are familiar with 5e, and so they're like, well, I would have advantage. I'm like, well, this game doesn't do advantage. So I started doing like +2s, or I'd bump the die up, like, okay, you have a d24 to attack rather than a d20. And that works, but I was thinking, like, I don't know what the official rule is. I'm kind of just making it up. And it made me think back to 5e. Was I this bad when I first started 5e? And maybe I was. Maybe I'm like, I don't know what to do, but I'll just use this rule right now and figure it out later kind of a thing, which is what they tell you to do. So, But I definitely had that feeling. The more we're running it, they're level 3 now, so we're getting a little more, like, robustness, I guess, to the system. And they're like, okay, like, it's not just a 0-level funnel where you die and you move on kind of a thing. So,
and you have such a limited amount of things you could even do. You're doing creative things, but on your sheet there's only so many things.
Exactly.
But by the time you get to a 3rd level, now there's mechanics coming from a character that you've been building that now you do have to kind of know what's going on.
Well, and so we had an idea where our thief was like, I want to pick this lock, and she tried and she failed. And then the halfling was like, well, can I do that? And I'm like, well, I don't want to say no, because it feels like you should be able to, but that really is the reason she's a thief. Like, if you don't have the thief, like...
Yeah, I mean, what's Jordan, can you pick a lock?
I don't want to invalidate what she can do. And he was fine with it. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. And I'm like, yeah, man, you're right. But in 5e, it's always kind of like, well, you can try, and, like, the barbarian's going to be better at breaking down the door. But anyone can really try, you know?
Anybody's, but I think that does show the difference between the games, right? The idea that DCC tries to be a little bit more
retro,
realistic, but I mean, obviously we're playing a fantasy game. I get that, but I mean, it's a little bit more gritty, a little bit more. I don't even want to say physics affect you more, but you do, because you don't have big sponges of hit points. You don't have,
Well, here's the thing: is they're rolling randomly for their hit points.
Yeah, I guess so.
I have one player that has a maximum of 15 hit points at level 3, but I have another one that has a maximum of like 32.
Ooh,
like,
there you go.
It's crazy, and I like how varied it is, because you play differently. You're like, okay, guys, like, I got to stay back. I got to do this. But the other person's like, I got hit points for days. Like, I don't care. But then, yeah, like little rules where we were trying to figure out, well, how do long rests work? And rules as written, you get 1 hit point back during a long rest, but that just doesn't seem to work for the type of adventure I want to run. So I've been telling them that they can roll their hit dice during a long rest and heal that much amount. So if they're level 3, they're going to have like 3d8 that they can roll, and then they'll just heal that much amount for the night. And more often than not, it gets them a good enough cushion to adventure for the next day. So
yeah, well, and I always thought DCC was more about survival, more about rules, about the world you're in is harsh, and they want it to be harsh, and the things around you are harsh.
Yeah.
And 5e these days is you're almost a superhero by the time you're a couple of levels in. I mean, you are so far above the farmer that you pass, you know, out in the field at that point that it's crazy. You're pretty much, you know, Batman walking by or Superman walking by.
Well, yeah, you are a superhero even at level 1.
you know, or whatever. So, whereas in DCC, you're not. Like, they purposely know you're a dude with a pitchfork, and if your pitchfork broke,
yeah,
you're in trouble.
Lots of fun though. We had a good time. They got a bunch of cool magic items from that dungeon. We all had a solid laugh. It was really fun. That's actually one of the things I was thinking of running easy D6 with you guys, is I could run you through the Pungeon, because it's very fun and it's very simple.
I'm trying to think if I should bring any of my books, the ones that maybe I have that you didn't get a chance to, like I've got.
Well, do you want to run something for me?
G.I. Joe, or even this. I got Lancer. I've got
Learn Alien in a week and then run it.
You could just bring it. We've got. What else do we got over there? We got all kinds of stuff. I bought Rune Master was one. Another one. I got a bunch of them over there. So I wasn't sure. I know I want to bring a couple of the games, the board game stuff, and we might not play any of it. But I got a car, so I can just throw whatever I want in there. So I was like, I'll throw a bunch of stuff in and see what happens. Good. Spectaculars. I got so many superhero games. You're not as much into the superhero ones.
Not as much, but they're still fun.
Urban Shadows. Have you heard of that one?
I have.
That's a good one. I got that. Right. I do want to play that one that in our Invisible Sun chat that nobody else knows about. They were talking about, was it World of Dungeons? Is Lex been talking about? That's been sounding pretty cool.
Yeah. So World of Dungeons, there's
Lex going to GenCon?
He's not, I don't think.
Oh, okay.
I was hoping he was. I guess he hasn't talked about it, so I don't think he is. But World of Dungeons is a free D6 system that's out there. Or maybe it's a D20 system. I don't remember. We did a video on it, me and Lex. So if you're curious, you can watch it. The rules are completely free. But what he's referring to is somebody took that really simple game system and made a interesting dungeon kind of play setting around it. So that's what he's really curious about, because it's this completely silly kind of free game, very simple dice, and then all of a sudden it's now I've got this complex world, and he thought it was really cool. So he's been wanting to run us through that, which would be fun. So
yeah, it sounded really cool.
But I've got too many games to play because that's happening. I'm in DM Nathan's game. I'm supposed to be starting an Eberron game for DM Nathan and friends, and now Lex and a bunch of other people are pestering me to get the Banana Bunch back together for that stream.
Yeah.
And we're having scheduling conflicts, but I was like, it looks like that's going to start up again. And I'm like, I think I can run 1 or 2 games a week. I don't think I can do the 4 to 5 games that I'm currently getting sucked into. And so
we'll see. Is DM Nathan or any of that group going Gen Con? You got
They're
anybody
not,
from that area?
D&D Beyond was going to go to Gen Con, but then they got bought by Wizards, and I don't think they're going anymore, which is kind of sad. Because Nathan was going to go as a representative of D&D Beyond, because he works there. And so he was going to have a flight and a hotel paid for, and it was going to be I just have to work the D&D Beyond booth a couple times. And I was like, that sounds awesome. We'll play all these games. But I get the feeling that PAX West is going to be their big thing, and he might be going to that, but I haven't heard. So
okay, because we've met up with Nate before.
Yeah, WASD20 Nate. Yep.
So I'm wondering if he's going.
The dungeon.
We know Ted's going, right?
Ted's going.
Ted's going for sure.
Celeste will be there. She's in a couple.
What about Kugo?
Kugo is not going.
Kuko the Mighty.
He's going to PAX West, though.
Oh.
And Professor Dungeon Master's going. I don't know Professor Dungeon Master. He's got a fun YouTube channel that I've been watching. But he's going to have like a Q&A thing. He set up a whole, like, kind of like what kind of Matt Colville did that one time, where he had you could buy tickets to go just like ask him questions, and
panel.
But the Mr. Professor Dungeon Master's doing that. I think Sly Flourish will be there. He goes all the time. So, but it'll be a smaller convention, I think. There's less people going than I know. So, it'll be a lot of
and I think they still have tickets
games
for sale, which usually means because normally back before the COVID, they would sell out.
Yeah.
And, you were just out of luck. You'd have to wait until next year to get tickets. Now I think you can even get tickets right now, and they haven't sold out. So. Yeah.
It's finding housing that's the problem.
So. They need more hotels in that area. Yep, for sure.
Just for that one night, which is sad. That can't be or that week. Because other times I'm sure they're just like, well, who wants to buy a hotel? Come on, guys.
Well, yeah, because the racetrack is up north of that for the Indianapolis 500, but then you have the Lucas Oil for the football games. So you got Indianapolis
Colts. I guess the
Colts.
Football games, yeah.
I don't know where their basketball arena would be, but they have the Pacers somewhere there. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I can't think of any other conventions. My company held their convention, or we did bring all our clients together in where GenCon is 2 months ago.
Oh, wow.
So they sent a bunch of our employees down there and like, oh, we're in Indianapolis. We're in this convention center. I'm like, God, I know that place. It looks weird when it's not GenCon. Yeah. So it was interesting that we had actually bought that place to do our convention for. Interesting. I'm excited. I can't wait. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to sleep for the next few days. I've still got to work Monday and Tuesday. I don't know how that's going to work.
Yeah, that's going to be dumb. I have to work Monday, Tuesday as well. I was like, should I take all of Wednesday off, or should I just do a half day? Because my plane doesn't leave till like 3. And I was like, no, I got to take the whole day off. Like, that's dumb. So.
Yeah, got to do that work.
Well, what's going on in Dungeon of the Mad Mage?
We finished that level of Drow. We defeated the fortress.
Do you know the numerical level that you're on?
The same as our level, I believe, 13 or 14.
Okay.
14, I think, because we just hit 7 and 7. 14. I think right now our levels seem to be matching the level we're on, which makes it confusing at a lot of times. But we freed some troglodyte. We freed some goblins. We freed a minotaur. We've added them to our troglodyte army that's on a level above that, which we keep, we have a lot of fun with propping up this. We gave them we had found like is it a circlet of intellect or a helm of intellect or something that boosts their intelligence up. So we gave it to the chief of the troglodytes. So now he's not just, in the game, they make the troglodyte tribes like a tribe. They're not sophisticated, but you throw a 19th intelligence stat roll onto their leader all of a sudden. Well, come on, that's genius level stuff. So and then we gave him magic armor and weapons so that he could protect his tribe, and like he's an ally of ours now. So I was like, there's just this interesting thing of us arming the troglodytes on this level to make them, but. We keep thinking that this could be a bad thing because apparently troglodytes breed quickly, and the whole shtick behind it is you don't want them to be too smart, because if they breed too quickly, they'll take over, and just it's like that whole idea of the swarm just takes over if it gets out of control. So we might be creating a troglodyte swarm that's going to be out of control all of a sudden because they're not not contained. So. But we'll laugh if that happens. I think that'd be great.
If you're only on level 14, I was just looking, not to spoil, but there's 23 levels.
20-something other levels. Yeah, we got a ways to go yet.
And you're,
I think they get smaller.
I know you're mapping everything too, but man, these are big.
100% map. That's the thing that's slowing us down a little bit. But we did level up, so that's the big news. I am now a 7th level Arcane Archer, which is okay. It's a okay class. It's not the best. I wish it was more like a Hawkeye, or I wish I had some more trick arrows to it, or you got more of those. It just kind of only gives you a couple, and you never really get too many more.
And I think there were a couple that were kind of useless too. So you always kind of feel shoehorned to use the
there's 3.
This is a bad example, but I'll use it so that people have the Warlock always has to kind of rely on Eldritch Blast.
Yeah,
and it's like
such a good spell.
It's like, well, but I don't want to use it. It's like, well, then you're kind of like limiting yourself, and how effective are you going to be in parties?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. So, but here's the best part. I am now a level 7 Twilight Cleric. So 7 Archer, 7 Twilight Cleric. And what do I get at that makes me so happy, Jordan?
I don't know.
A domain spell. And guess what domain spell I get that makes me super happy?
Tell me.
Greater invisibility.
Ooh, so now you can stay invisible. Yeah.
I can shoot my arrows as an Aarakocra from hundreds of feet in the sky, completely invisible, and not break it. Oh my god, broken. Now I have broken the game.
Because you'll have advantage on every shot. That's crazy.
Yeah, and they'll have disadvantage, and I don't even know if... I mean, how do you even... Technically, anybody can try to shoot at anybody else, right? And if they're invisible, you would get disadvantage when you're trying to attack them. But to me, that even seems like...
Well, if you're hundreds of feet away, it's probably like...
Yeah, what is double disadvantage or triple disadvantage?
Well, I think I would be like, okay, I know that it came from that area, but I would even roll maybe like you have a 1 in 6 chance of being allowed to roll the d20. You know, like let's say 1 in 6 chance, and you're like, okay, I rolled, a 4 on my 1 in 6 chance. It's like, well, he did try to attack. We'll say that he did, but it's an automatic miss. Like, yeah, I don't even know.
I had this problem when I was running
or you just say they don't have the range to do it, so who knows.
And I was running the Oni monster, which was really cool. And he was using his invisibility because he could go in and out of it at will, but it would break. It wasn't greater invisibility, it was regular invisibility. So when he would do things, he would come out of it, but then at will go back into it. And I kept thinking, if he got to a certain range away from the players, I just felt like, no, you just can't willy-nilly shoot and just hope for disadvantage, because some of those bonuses, like a barbarian who's raging gets, go ahead and give me disadvantage. Watch what I can do with all these pluses and dice. I can hit disadvantage left and right. I'll show you. And that didn't make sense to me. I'm like, no, you've got to somehow have a chance first to think they're in an area, then almost like a double thing. Like, so first a perception check to say, do you know a general area? And that's good enough to give you a disadvantage shot. But if you don't even make the perception roll, I'm not even going to let you do the disadvantage roll. And it might have been harsh, but I felt like that's the only way to make that invisible creature meaningful and impactful and scare the players. And it did, because that Oni was coming in and out, and it hit him with that cone of cold, and then jumped out and disappeared, and then kept coming at him and kept coming at him, and they were just like freaking out, and they finally beat him, and they worked together, and they did all the things you'd want them to do. And they talk about that story all the time, even though I think I really ran the Oni, not rules as written. I think I kind of
made it your own
a little bit, but it made it a better encounter, right? It just made it more memorable for them to be something that's in and out. You never know where it's at, and you're almost waiting for it to show again before you can try to do something. So
I guess you need to really think about how you want to run invisibility, because there's a part of me that's like, well, if you're invisible, I'm going to see your footsteps, I'm going to hear you. You could even say, are you invisible or are you predator invisible? Where it's like, I kind of get a sense of where you are.
Shimmer.
And then disadvantage on a sword attack makes a lot of sense, because like, I know you're there, but I can't necessarily see you dodging out of the way, or you're just like, am I hitting armor? Am I hitting a shield? But if it's like, I'm not there at all.
Invisible.
And if you're Aarakocra, where you're like hovering or something, and it's like, well, I can't see anything, you have no effect on it, then it is kind of like, I don't know where that came from. So but so, that's D&D. Like, it's all up for interpretation, and I guess you need to be like, well, I envision it like this. And it's like, oh. That's usually that conversation you have with your DM where you're like, I'm basically untouchable. And then they're like, well, I envisioned it more like this. And you're like, oh, well, then I don't want that spell, because it's not as powerful as I thought it was. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And I always would say, here's my tip for that. If you're going to run your creatures like that, you have to be ready to let your players do that too. So if you're going to come up with a rule set or a fudge or a I'm going to let this happen with invisible creature stuff, then if they get to be invisible, you really should let them have the advantages of that too, that you've given, this other.
And or the maybe monster there are is very special. I don't know. I'm not giving lair actions to my players just yet. So
They have their own. They just don't. They don't call them layer actions. They're called reaction and bonus action. No.
Too funny.
Yeah. So very interesting.
Cool.
So that's what we're playing. I'm excited about that. I don't know if I'm going to play on Tuesday night. Although everybody asks, I'm like, I probably won't be sleeping. So I might
what
as well
time are you
just
getting into Indianapolis then?
So it's a 3-hour drive, about a 3.5-hour drive.
That's nothing.
So I'm going to wake up at a normal time, step into my car, drive over, and I'm probably going to be there midday-ish.
Cool.
Figure out the parking situation, and then just hang out and see what's going on.
Nice.
Because there's not a lot that you can do on Wednesday. They're setting booths up. They don't let you in that room.
The area outside of GenCon, I feel like there's lots of like pre-parties that are going on because everyone's there. But you're right. It'll be fun to actually be there when the doors open, kind of a thing, because I don't think I've ever done that. So I always end up getting there Thursday evening, and it's like, well, it's already been one day. So
yeah. Oh, you haven't been there when the rush into the hall happens?
Yeah, I haven't done that yet.
Oh, that's gonna be so good.
That's our show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. We will not be back next week as we'll both be in GenCon. But if you're going to GenCon, come and say hi. If you're in our Discord, we have a GenCon area, like a chat room in Discord, to kind of like schedule meetups and just be like, hey, I need a player for this. Or, hey, it's not very big, I will be honest. But if you do join it, it will get bigger. So links in the
I bet we're on Twitter a ton.
Yeah, we're on Twitter.
I'll be sending out pictures and saying, I'm over here, I'm doing that. So if you're following us on Twitter, you're pretty much going to be able to know what's going on while we're out there.
Come say hi. I mean, yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. There's a couple of content creators that I was hoping were going. I don't know if they are, though.
Well, usually there's a meetup. We got to find where that's at, because usually we've been to the creator meetup.
That's the thing, is like Unmade Gaming, Michael used to organize that, and I don't think he's going, so I don't think he's organizing it, because he's got a new baby.
To Ted,
so
and tell Ted to organize it. He's good at that. He can do that.
Oh, I do know that the guys that run startplaying.games, they're having a big party on Thursday night. They invited me to. And apparently they're going to order a bunch of food and drinks on the company credit card, is what he said. So if I hear more information on that, I'll let you guys know. So
nice. If we ever have a game company, we'll do that too.
We'll
company food and parties.
Thank you so much for coming, guys. Showing up and watching this live. We'll see you in a couple weeks, unless you're GenCon bound, and we'll have lots to talk about after GenCon, I'm sure. So until then, take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye.